welcome back. More than likely, this is your first time seeing me, so welcome in the first place to my channel. I'm recording a little earlier than normal because look at me trying to go to bed on time. I was watching an Alex Hormozy video earlier and he's like, everyone sets alarms to wake up, but we should really be setting alarms to go to bed because if you go to bed on time, you're not going to oversleep. So look at me trying to go to bed on time. The sun hasn't even set. I'm going to bed before the sun goes to bed. And that's crazy. To be fair, it is in the middle of setting, so it's like not that early, but like still. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about Donald Trump. I know. Everyone watching this probably has very strong feelings in either direction about that man. And I just want to read a few quotes from him. And not the ones that you think I'm going to say, because you're probably expecting me to read off the shenanigans, the nonsense that he says, but here's an example of what I mean. I always felt that a lot of modern art is a con, and that the most successful painters are often better salesmen and promoters than they are artists. Donald Trump. In the end, you're measured not by how much you undertake, but by what you finally accomplish. Donald Trump. Your business and your brand must first let people know what you care about and that you care about them. Donald Trump. The harder I work, the luckier I get. I mean, that's not really his quote for real, but whatever. I'm sure he said it too. But he's not the originator. Remember, there's no such thing as an unrealistic goal, just unrealistic timeframes. Donald Trump. If you're interested in balancing work and pleasure, stop trying to balance them. Instead, make your work more pleasurable. Donald Trump. Success comes from failure, not from memorizing the right answers. Donald Trump. I like to think of the word focus as follow one course until successful. Donald Trump. What separates the winners from the losers is how a person reacts to each new twist of fate. Donald Trump. Isn't that wild, friends? Don't you think it's a little crazy? Oh, here's another one. Sometimes your best investments are the ones you don't make. Donald Trump. When you're wrong repeatedly, the worst thing you can do is continue taking it. Fight back. Donald Trump. Criticism is easier to take when you realize that the only people who aren't criticized, are those who don't take any risk. Donald Trump. As long as you're going to be thinking anyway, think big. Think huge. Donald Trump. Sometimes by losing a battle, you find a new way to win the war. Donald Trump. So the reason I have these quotes, they've been in my phone for a few years, is because I was going to write a whole book. I know, committed, right? I was going to write a whole book on things you can learn from Donald Trump. Not to be controversial, but to prove a point that probably was not going to get across because people don't believe in nuance. But I think those were solid quotes. I think a lot of that is good advice. Whether he takes his own advice is a different question, of course. But nonetheless, good advice nonetheless, and things that I would like to continue to implement if I haven't already started in my life. And the reason I bring this up is because I'm sorry if you're a Trump stan, but I don't like that man. I don't support him at all. He's disgusting in many ways. And that being said, he said some things that are useful. And I wish that as adults, assuming that you're an adult watching this, and if not, you're going to be an adult one day, so take notes. As an adult, I wish people had the maturity to understand that no human being is all bad or all good. Maybe mostly bad, but not all bad or all good. And the reason why I say that is because you've probably heard the phrase, don't shoot the messenger. And I think sometimes, even when the message is good, people shoot the messenger and the message. For example, if I had said any one of those things, somebody would be like, oh my God, you're so wise. That's great advice. Thank you. But as soon as I say Donald Trump says these things, people are like, ew, fuck him. I hate him. And I'm like, yeah, and that was still useful. And I think people would be much farther along in life if we all learned to learn from people we don't like and from people we like. And sometimes people refuse sound advice, very useful help, effective connections and opportunities because they don't like who it's coming through, the messenger. They don't like the messenger. And regardless of what your views are on Trump as a person overall, these were some of his messages. Some of his messages, even if you don't appreciate him as a messenger. And if you will automatically decide, I don't want to take any form of counsel from that man, okay. But a more nuanced view is, can I use my own judgment and discernment on the counsel itself and decide if I want to apply it to my life? And the reason why this is dangerous is because on the flip side, you end up in a situation where someone you really like gives you terrible advice and you take it because you like them, right? And it's like, oh, I love Beyonce. Yes, Beyonce. And then Beyonce's like, I think everyone should go on a banana only diet for 30 days. And now people are trying to do banana only diets. That's silly. That's stupid, right? On the flip side, if you think Donald Trump is silly or stupid, but he said all of the things I just read to you, and you automatically throw them out the window because you don't like who said it, that's also silly and stupid. Who cares where the advice came from? Does it apply to your life? Is it useful? Yes or no? Really terrible advice can come from people you love and admire, and really great advice can come from people you absolutely detest. And I don't want anyone making their life worse because they are too immature to take advice from someone they don't respect. Of course, there's other sayings such as like, don't take advice from people who you wouldn't trade spots with, blah 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 blah. And I appreciate that perspective, but it's still not nuanced enough. Because someone, right, it's like, oh, don't listen to, even one of the quotes he put in here was about critics and not listening to your critics because your critics don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just sitting on the sidelines criticizing you, but sometimes your critics have something useful to say. And who cares where the advice came from? Because ultimately, and this is where the maturity comes in, only you benefit. Like, you lose nothing, actually. If you take good advice from a terrible person and you implement the advice, your life gets better. And if you take terrible advice from a great person, your life gets worse. Like, only you suffer the consequences of the advice that you take and the advice that you refuse to take. And so if it's going to benefit you, why are you being so petty? So petty, as in refusing to further your own life to spite someone else. Right? Like that's something. A couple years ago I was having a conversation with a friend she was talking about someone else, and she was like, wow, like imagine being so petty that you'd make your own life worse to prove a point to someone else. And that really stuck with me because I can be a very petty person and I'm trying to grow out of that. I'm like, this year, 2026, has been a year of focusing on maturity in all forms. Spiritual maturity, psychological, interpersonal maturity, because I never want to be so stupid as to fuck up my own life because I'm too childish to let someone else get the benefit or the ego boost of knowing that they were right. Yes, you're right. Congratulations to you and your ego. And guess what? My life is better off for it. But I'm not going to make my life worse or abstain from benefits in my own life because I don't like you. And I think a lot of people do that in a way that is concerning. At the end of the day, this is going to sound so fucked up, but at the end of the day, if someone has something that you don't have but want, there's something they know that you don't. And you may not like what that answer is. Like, maybe the answer is they're just violent and they robbed someone. But they know something that you don't. And that means that there's something to be learned here. Whether or not you want to apply it into your own life is your own choice. But don't automatically discard any source of information if it can ultimately benefit you, even if it's coming from Donald Trump. He's had a lot of failures in life, but I also have to admit that there have been some successes. And I may not like all the paths he took to get said successes, but that doesn't mean I'm incapable of learning something from him. I think Gary Vee has said something about this previously where it's like, the wisest person in life can learn something from anyone. And I love that because we're surrounded by idiots, but you can learn something even from idiots. And same thing with failures. You may be surrounded by failures, not people as failures. I mean, like, you failed a lot of times, but ultimately the failures will benefit you if you learn from them. You can learn from your own failures, you can learn from other people's failures, you can learn from other people's stupidity and other people's wisdom. So the best person in life is the person who's able to learn from anyone and everyone, and can learn from a situation, whether positive or negative, regardless of their emotional feelings about whether that situation should or should not warrant learning from. And so even if you hate Donald Trump, there are still things you can learn from him. And I would say a majority of people do not have the maturity to admit that, because it feels like you're endorsing him, you're co-signing him, you're appreciating him overall. And that's where the black and white thinking comes in. Versus at the end of the day, maturity lives in nuance. And the nuance is, he may not be that great overall, but that doesn't mean there isn't something you can learn from him. Or at the very least, I will be learning from him even if you choose not to.